What made you start a Legacy?
Well, that's really a good question. My dad started the textile factory in 1993, I think. And so my grandpa, before him, he owned the feed store here in town, Tommy's Supply. And so all my life, I've just been in business because when I was a little kid, I hung out there in business. And then my dad, I don't know, I guess I was 12 when he started it. So, and when you're the business owner's kid, you get drugged to do all the work and no pay. And so I spent most of my time at a t-shirt factory. And then when I got 14, I could work there and draw minimum wage. So, and he didn't pay me no better than that either. It's minimum wage most all my young life. And whatever least he could get by with. And he said he always did that. He told me different times, he said, just always have the mindset that you're broke. And he said, even if you ain't broke, he said, still keep that same mindset. And because it'll just make you harder and tougher for things that comes down the road. And so, I never did get paid much money. And I learned a whole lot about business growing up because at the dinner table, that's all they talked about was business. And the textile factory is the worst business, honestly, to be in because you have zero control over everything. In a textile business, you're every line of girls. Say some do collars, some put sleeves on, some hem bottoms, some just do the side seams, some put cuffs on. But the next line is always dependent on the girls behind them showing up and being there, not being hungover and feeling like working that day, and not having boyfriend problems or not in jail. Not in jail was a pretty good thing too that we run into. So you've got $25,000 worth of payroll that you have to pay out every week, and you have zero control over anything that gets done. And back in the 90s, it was different though. People was bred to work, I guess you'd say, back in, and they worked, and it wasn't so much. But then, as the 2000s rolled around, and I got older, I went to college. I was going to the military. My dad was in the military, and I had done already, being at that time they had the recruiting office out here beside where the Rite Aid used to be, and I'd done already been to talk to the guy, and this was like maybe on a Monday morning. I'd done been to talk to the guys. I'd been graduated about a year, I guess, somewhere in there. No, I'd been graduated about 2 years, and I'd been working for my dad, and at that time we had a factory in Maynardville and one in Granger County. And every day my job was I was cutting, and then I would take everything that we cut, and we had a big 26 foot box truck that I would haul it all over to Granger County every day and bring back for them to work on the next day, and then I would bring back what they already had done to ship out. And so it just I got to looking around and realizing, I was like, man, I don't know, you've got a lot of money tied up at all times, and you're dependent, like I said, on the girls, and then after that you're dependent on your customers paying you. And a lot of times they'd have invoices for a lot of money, and they'd only want to send half, or they'd just send parts. So then you're stuck scrambling trying to come up with payroll, hoping that they pay you and they don't just bail out. And my dad had several that just bailed out. They'd get big invoices up, $100,000 invoices up, and then they'd just not pay. So we was kind of stuck with that. In my mind, I said, this is awful. This ain't what I, think I want to do the rest of my life. So I thought that I would go to the military. This would have been 1999 sometime. I graduated in 97, so this would have been in 99. And just about, about maybe 2 days after I talked to the military guy, my high school sweetheart who I'd courted ever since the 6th grade, She come up to me and told me she was pregnant. And I said, oh, yeah, on my mom's back porch. She said, well, I got something I need to tell you. And I thought she was just breaking up with me. And I was like, well, I got something I need to tell you. And then she's like, well, I'm pregnant. I was like, no, don't worry about what I got to tell you now. It don't matter. So we found that out in, like, I don't know, it was the fall of the year. That's kind of how I judge everything, just by season. Everybody got a grandbaby on the way, and everybody says, when's it coming? All I remember is spring. I just know it'll be here about in fertilizer season. And so she told me that, and then I decided that, well, I was going to have to maybe do something a little different. So then I went to college. I went to Walter State at first, and I was pulling a lot of hours. I was pulling all the hours they'd let me pull, like 21, 23 hours at that time. And going to summer school, just trying to get, thought that I wanted to be a teacher, because I looked around and I said, man, that's pretty nice. You get paid for 12 months out of the year and you don't have to work 3 of them. And so I've always been real good with numbers. And that's from when I was a little bitty kid. My grandpa taught me how to count cows by twos. I could count twos faster than anything. And then as I growed up, well, we dealt in dozens. If you work in a textile business, everything you do is times 12. And there's a lot of division and a lot of multiplication. So numbers has always just been super easy for me and super fast. I always made good grades and in math and English. I can't hardly spell my name the same way twice. But math I'm pretty slick in. And so I went to college and started that. And then that was the first year that ETSU was offering, you could do ETSU credit through Walter State at the Walter State campus in Morristown. So then after I got done at Walter State, and by this time I had a lot of hours in. I had like 112 hours, I think, something like that. It's been a while, but it's 100 and some hours. So then I went to ETSU through Walter State and was doing real good, going to get my secondary education mathematics degree. And but I was also going to do, because I didn't want to be limited to just secondary, so I also had K through 8 too. So it come time to do the student teaching part and do the where you go observe and go do everything. I took my Praxis 1 test, and I chose Eddie Don Ray at Springdale to go sit with, and I spent I don't know, I guess a couple of weeks there, and about 2 weeks in I said, yeah, this is worse than Textile Factory. I don't think this is for me. And I'd already had an appointment over at LMU to go and take the Praxis 2 test. And after you do that, I mean, you're pretty well set and home free. So I went and took that and passed my Praxis 2. And but in my mind, I still said, I don't know about this. I believe this, any teacher that's a good teacher, the good Lord give them the talent and the patience for that. And I'm thanking the good Lord that He seen far enough ahead that tell me that it's good that I got education. It was good. I guess my favorite class really in college, of all the classes that I took, and I took a lot because I was a professional student, was probably child psychology. I loved that child psychology class. And I think any parent ought to just take them as a child psychology class. And one thing that had helped me through all my life is the one thing that I remember of that whole class, and it don't just refer to children, it refers to people that you work with or you go to church with or just people down the road, is you always spend more time bragging on the things they did right instead of reminding them of the things they did wrong. And because my dad, he never did have no child psychology class. My dad was a professional of you can do better. And I ain't sure my dad ever bragged on me till I was probably 40 years old for nothing. Of course, I probably didn't do much to be bragged on at that time in my life. I was a pretty good rounder by then. And so military went away, and then the teaching, it kind of got on the back burner. I guess I've still got that in my hip pocket if it's something. I can't imagine nothing to ever be bad enough that I'd want to do that, but it's a possibility. And so I called my dad and I said, I believe I'm just gonna come back to work. So then they put me over the cutting crew. And at that time we had two. I wouldn't really say I was over it because I was always low man of the totem pole, but I had to just do whatever needed to be done. And all my life, I was just raised that you just do whatever needs to be done, from cleaning the commode to whatever. And so we had two shifts of cutting, morning and a day and a night shift. And then it kind of, when in the early 2000s, it started being a lot more difficult to find made in the USA work, because we were having to compete with China and Vietnam and Mexico and everybody. So we scaled way down, and we left Union County and come up here to Claiborne County. And me and my brother, my dad had decided he was ready to retire, and he would show up every day about 11 o'clock, and he'd walk around, talk to all the girls, and tell me and my brother what we need to do different every day. But he would go take us to McDonald's and buy our dinner. So we put up with that to save $4. And he would do that, and then he'd stay till about 1 o'clock, and he'd go back home. And so then by that time, everything's in mine and my brother's name. And you don't really worry about life much when you're not completely responsible for everything. But at that time, I was more completely responsible. And man, that ain't a lot of fun either. When you've got the weight of everything on you, when there ain't nobody else to throw it off to, you just stuck with holding it. That ain't a lot of fun. And it also still does come back to, like what I said earlier, that you have zero control over anything. So I started looking around at what we were doing and what we were offering, and I started thinking, how could I branch out? At that time, I was pastoring Fairview and had my life going pretty good. And then the devil figured out I had my life going pretty good. And then I tell you, just when you think you got life by the horns, boy, I had three pretty boys, and we was married and was pastoring church, and then wheels just run plumb off. I don't know no better way to say it. The thing about me is I've always been honest with my past. If you want to know anything about me, don't ask nobody else. Be sure to ask me. I won't hide nothing from you. A lot of regrets, a lot of things I wished I'd done different, and a lot of crazy mistakes that, you think in your mind, have you ever said, I don't understand how they do that, I'd never done that. Don't ever say that, because you just don't know what you'll do or what you won't do given the right situation. We like to think that we got a higher standard, and that we got higher morals, and that we're way up here and that would never affect us and wouldn't bother us. But I promise you, the devil studies all the time on how to get you in the right situation to where you would give in to things that you would have said a month ago that you'd never give in to. So don't ever fool yourself with that. And so then we got divorced, and you want to talk about the hardest thing in the world is when you've went the last 15, 16 years with your boys home every night to the first night that you're sitting there, and shoot, all I had was I had a chair. I didn't have a couch, I didn't have a TV, I just had a chair sitting in a den. Just, our house was new, I had to pay her a bunch of money, and I was so far in debt that it was crazy, and all I had was a chair to sit in. Didn't even have a kitchen table. I mean, that house was pretty bare. And you sit there and you think to yourself, how in the world did my life go from cruise control to this, and it's all just by not thinking far enough ahead and just going by spur of the moment and acting on impulse and just making some foolish decisions. So before you make any foolish decisions, whoever watches this, let me encourage you to think what the repercussions of it is and what it's going to be like down the road. Because the devil, he'll just tell you everything will be fine, or he'll tell you don't worry about it, everybody's doing this and everybody's doing that. Well, I ain't never found him to be much of a reliable source, and I ain't never found him to be a very good friend either. He's a good friend to me as long as I'm doing what he wants me to do. But there'll come a time when you're sitting there in your chair looking around saying, how in the world did I get to here? So at that time, work was kind of funky because it was hard to get people to work. I was divorced. They had a thing on the computer back in. They didn't have Facebook, called Topics, and my gosh, my name was all, they must have been 750 threads of my name on there. And a lot of it, was true, but a lot of it wasn't true. But you get to the point in your life when you just say, well, maybe it'll just die out. Well, it don't die out. It was a hard time. I would go to Walmart and see people that I'd been in church with all my life, and they'd see me coming, they'd go around the other way just so they wouldn't have to look at me or talk to me. And I've always said the good Lord let me go through that to see how I ought to treat people. Because I tell you, church people treat you worse than the guy at the bar will. The guy at the bar, he's going to love you no matter what, because probably he's been there before. And the church people's been there before too. They just don't want nobody to know it. And that's the difference. And so I got real aggravated at church people. I didn't want nothing to do with them. And I was up at work one day, and Randy Beeler come up there, and that was the first pastor that I don't know, I'd probably been, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and I was pretty down low in the valley and in the gutter. And Randy Beeler come up to work, and we sat up there in my office, and he just was as friendly and nice to me as he was when I was in church full time. And so that kindly showed me right then that not everybody sucks. They don't. I mean, not everybody does. The good Lord's got a lot of people. I was kind of like, you remember old Elijah's back in the cave in the Bible, and he was back in there pouting because he thought everybody got killed. The king's wife, she had done told him that he was fixing to get killed, so he was back in this cave. He was all pouted up, feeling sorry for himself. Well, that's kind of where I was in life and in business too. Business wasn't doing good, so when you get, the devil tries to do kind of like it did Job. Job lost everything all at one time. It just, every day something different happened to him. Well, that's kind of how you get your life spiraling, because at that time, we was running close to 200 people every Sunday morning at church, and church was on fire and doing good. And Job had a good life doing good, richest man in the world probably at that time. And then just, everything was gone. And kind of like Elijah, he sat in that cave, and God asked him, he said, Elijah, why are you sitting in here? Elijah said, well, they ain't nobody cares about me no more. They ain't nobody, everybody's trying to kill me, and there ain't nothing going my way. And the Lord told him, he said, I believe I got 5,000 hid out down here that's still on your side. And Elijah gained some courage from that. So I always felt like that the Lord sent Randy up to the church, up to work, to remind me that there's still a lot of good people out there. So that showed me real quick on in my life how that no matter how good I live, if I come across a person living the worst that I know of, and I'm believing all the rumors that I'm hearing on, the best thing I can do for them is don't go down a different aisle. Let's look at them, just say, hey buddy, how you doing? Don't worry about it, I've been there. Just, there comes a time when you just have to say, I'm going to put a nail in it today, and I ain't coming back no more from this, and I'm going to start me a line right here, and I'm going to go forward, mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever. And so that's kind of what I did that day, and I started crawling my way out of the gutter and crawling, trying to get my feet planted back under me a little bit. Well, I got to looking around, and we used to, when we worked in Maynardville, we used to work beside a big printing company down there. The guy printed thousands of shirts a week. He had a big automated machine. So I got on Craigslist at that time, and I found a used big M&R automatic screen print machine. I know nothing about it. Didn't know anything at all about screen print. All I knew was I had an avenue to get the shirts. And in my mind, I felt like if I can get the shirts cheaper than anybody else, because basically I already had the cloth, so the way it worked out, I didn't have anything in the shirts. I could really undercut and I could stay awful busy. And so that was my business plan. I found a printing press up in Cincinnati, Ohio. Me and my brother borrowed a trailer off Mark Sutton, and we drove up there. Didn't even know the guy had it in pieces. Didn't ask him really, no questions about it. I know it was $4,500. And let me back up just a second. Before I bought that one, I bought a system out in Bowling Green, a manual with a little old tiny dryer about this big, and I put it in my garage, and it was $1,100, and I had about $200 in my bank account, and my dad loaned me, I believe he loaned me $1,000 to go get it. And I told him, I said, I just want to do this on the side. I'm going to flea market, and I'm going to do this. And I went out there and got that little old press, and looking back, it was the cheapest Chinese made thing that they made, but I didn't, I didn't know no better. And I went out to Bowling Green, me and my mama and my aunt, and me and Shelly had been courting. I don't know if we was married then or not. We got engaged July the 4th, and we was married before the fall. I can't remember exactly when we did get married, but it's before the fall. And you know what? Yeah, she I guess both of us would say we wish we'd done a lot of things different, but it was what it was. So David said this, he said you can't pick water back up off the ground after it's been spilled out. So you just have to just look at the mud and just go through it, and then once you get through the mud, you're back, just put your feet down and try to start going a little better. I'll say this, if you watch this and you ain't got nothing in your life that you wished you'd have done different, why, you can think whatever you want to think about me, but I'm satisfied there ain't nobody that's going to watch this ain't done something. Might not be the same thing as your neighbor did, but I promise you've done something that you said, boy, I wished I'd have done different. And that comes back to what I was talking about at Walmart. Don't go down the other aisle. When you see, don't just love somebody when they're good. It's good to love them while they're good, but love them even better when they're bad. When they've done wrong, you love them even harder. And the Bible said love covered the whole multitude of sin. And so the harder you love somebody, the quicker they'll recover, I promise you. And the quicker that you might not think it at the time that they're paying any attention to the love that you're giving them, but I promise you, when they're sitting in that chair and ain't nothing else in the living room to look at but the walls, they'll remember that. That'll come back to them, and that'll bless you and bless them at the same time. So we got this thing set up. It's a funny story. We got this thing set up in the garage, and we watching videos. YouTube wasn't just super popular back then. There wasn't a lot of videos on. So we bought books. We went to McKay's down there in Knoxville, because that's all I could afford was used books. I couldn't afford no new books. And we bought books to learn how to read, how to screen print, and I bought videos. I think they're CDs. They wasn't on VHS. They was CDs. Bought videos on how to do it. And because now you just type something in on YouTube and you can go from embalming a corpse to building a house. I mean, you ain't nothing that you can't do on YouTube nowadays. Be a professional at it. And so we started out in the garage, and we done our name. Luckily, going back to the guy that I told you about that had the big printing press in Maynardville, he helped us. Without him, without him, and my dad loaning me $1,000, I don't know what. I'd probably be selling cars in Morristown or something right now. I don't know what I'd be doing, but I sure wouldn't be where I'm at now. The computer side of screen printing is all the thing. If your artwork ain't right, the print on the shirt ain't right, and so then that artwork is very expensive programs. Like right now, honestly, I'd say on that computer over there, I've probably got close to $30,000 worth of just different programs that's on there. It's not programs that you have to have to work, but it's programs now, when you make enough money, it makes life a whole lot simpler. So at that time, we were having to do everything the long way. And he helped us. He helped us tremendously. I would take a picture of something and I would send it to him and say, hey, this is what this looks like. What do I need to do different? And we went through, we burnt screens. We had a whole cabinet built in our utility room. And on the back porch, I had a frame built with a pressure washer. And we started doing this late in the fall. And by then it was getting really cold. And our pressure washer would freeze up back there. We'd have to bring it in, put it in the bathtub, run hot water through the hose just to be able to wash out a screen. Well, we got our first gig, and a girl called us. I can't remember now to save me who it was, but the first thing we ever got paid for, there was some people here in the town that had started up. They went to your house if you had ghosts. If you had ghosts, they'd go to your house. And they'd cleanse it, or they'd talk to the ghost, or they'd do something. And I can't remember who it was, saved my life. Well, they wanted about 20 shirts. It's called the Claiborne County. I've still got one of the shirts somewhere. Claiborne County Ghost Hunting Association, or something like that. And shoot, I think we charged them $3 or $4 or $5 a shirt. But that's the first revenue that we ever had. Well, from there, we got in with the animal shelter. Lady out the animal shelter got in with us, and we started making shirts for the animal shelter. And from there, from making the shirts, we started getting pretty busy at making just small order stuff. A lot of we didn't have no churches wanting to fool with us. We didn't have no call for no churches wanting to fool with us. I was still on topics at that time. And but I did have the ghost hunters, and I did have one of the parts stores. I don't remember if it was, I don't remember they was doing something, and we made shirts for it, AutoZone, I think, and just little things like that, birthday parties, family reunions, stuff like that. And I'll say this: if you want to print shirts for a living, because right now, if you ask me anything, I'm gonna tell you, you can make a lot of money printing shirts. Printing shirts is the most profitable. I promise you, if you stay busy printing shirts, you can make more money than a doctor, a lawyer, anything else. It ain't no, a shirt you can print on automatic. You can print, I don't know, you can print a shirt every 3 seconds. So that turns a lot of shirts. You can clear $5, $6. So if you cleared $6 every 3 seconds, that's what is that? That's $120. You can make right fast in a minute. Just so it's crazy what you can make in printing shirts, but it's expensive to get into, and you've got to commit to it. When most of the time when people calls you wanting a shirt done, they call you on Wednesday and they need to pick it up by Thursday evening. So that's how I got started in doing my own thing. So then me and my brother, we went up to Cincinnati, and I'd made enough money, would give $4,500 for that automatic, and went up there and saved up enough, and we bought it, and we bought a brand new, or not a new, it's well used dryer. And the dryer we bought was a 3-phase, so it had to go in our factory up there. And God, it was huge. I borrowed Tim Owsley's trailer. It come from down there in Alabama, down where the crappie fish. I found it on Craigslist, and the guy wanted $1,000 for it. And I thought, man, that seems cheap. Well, when I got down there, I figured out what he wanted $1,000 for. That thing was huge, and it took I mean, it would filled up this building nearly. That thing was humongous. And you ought to seen us coming through Alabama with that old big thing on that trailer. I'd say everybody we passed looked at us like, what? And you know what? It was a hard day because my brother, just right before we got there, his wife called him and said her dad had had a heart attack and died. So he had to deal with that the whole time, you know. And so that was a pretty tough day. And we get that thing back and get everything set up, and them, you know, we're rolling good. Me and Shelly went to Cincinnati because before we got married, why we'd go to places like that, you know, kind of sneaking around, what you'd say when you didn't want nobody in Tazewell to see you. Even though I was done divorced, I still didn't want nobody to see me because I was afraid if they seen me in the Walmart, they just wouldn't even come in at all. And I didn't want Walmart to lose no business because I was there. And they'd just go back to their car, I felt like. So we'd go to Atlanta, or we'd go to Cincinnati. They didn't have no money. We'd just go up there and we'd go in the casino and just watch other people gamble. We didn't have no money to gamble on. We'd just go watch other people gamble. And we was in Cincinnati, and we was coming back, and we come back on the back road. Back in, you had this Garmin thing you stuck in your window. You didn't have no phone that you could type in your address to get you home. And we decided we was going to take a back road. Well, we went on this back road, had this old Honda Odyssey van, because you know we got 5 boys between me and her both, so we had to have a van. And had this old Honda Odyssey van, and we was coming back on the back road, and they was having an auction at an estate sale. I'd never been to nothing like that. Well, she had always done a lot of craft fairs, and now she's a hustler. I mean, you think I'm a hustler? I don't hold a light to her. She's a hustler, and she would always do whatever she could to make extra money. And so she done a lot of craft fairs, painted ornaments, hand painted, take old paint cans and paint them, make utensil holders out of, and she'd always loved antiques and into antiques. I wasn't into antiques because where I was raised up on my farm, everything we had was an antique, because as far as I know, they ain't no Lester on Burke Road ever throwed one thing away. If it ever comes to Burke Road, that's where it dies at. It just sits there. From now till the Lord comes back, it just sits there. And so I wasn't much into antiques, but she was. Well, we go to that estate sale, and we might have spent, I didn't realize how cheap stuff was either at the estate sale, because it's like, you know, that person dead, ain't nobody wants it, so just get rid of it. They just won't get rid of it. And so we bought like $150, $120 worth of stuff, and we had that little old Honda Odyssey, son. I mean, it was packed full of pitchforks, oxen yoke collars. I still got a lot of that stuff in my garage that we bought that day. Lamps, old lamps. I mean, stuff that I wouldn't have paid you $10 for everything's in there. Somehow she got to be the boss, and we filled that sucker up and brought it home. She said, we can take this to the Rogersville Craft Fair, down to Clinton, and we can resell it and make good money. And I thought, yeah, I'm sure we're going to be stuck with this. It'd be like anything else on Burke Road that comes. It just dies there. Well, she got it. And by this time, Facebook just was starting out. This would have been 2012, I guess. Facebook just was kind of getting rolling. Well, we took some pictures of it out in the garage, just laying there. You know, didn't doll them up or nothing. Well, my phone wouldn't doll it up. I've only ever owned 4 cell phones in my whole life. And that goes way back to when they come out years ago. And so my phone, I used to have the phone when you text somebody, you had to hit the same number about 3 times to get to the ABC part of it, you know. So I wasn't too phone savvy, still ain't too phone savvy. And we took pictures of that, and I'd be dadgum if we didn't start selling some stuff. So I was like, wait a minute, we just paid $5 for this, and we sold it to somebody for 25. And I was thinking that's a great big return on my money, especially when you ain't got no money. So then we started. There's a thing on the internet called Auction Zip. You go to Auction Zip, put your zip code in, and it'll show you all the auctions that's going to be within 50 miles, 100 miles, 25 miles, whatever. So we live. Yeah. All right. So yeah, Facebook's rolling around, and we're going to the Auction Zip and to the Craigslist and going to every estate sale that we can find, and it's kind of crazy. We would call coffees or call down there at Claver and see who's dead, and then wondering what they was going to sell at their house. Because that's kind of the mindset that we had. And I started to see real quick that with that factory up Cedar Fort, that you just still didn't have any control over anything. With this, at least, I was responsible for how much money. The harder that I advertised, the stuff that I made better decisions to buy, was the more profit that I was going to be able to make. So I told my brother, I said, man, I'm thinking about opening up a store. And of course, everybody in my family told me, said, man, you're crazy. It ain't never going to work. And not here in Tazewell. And it's honest. If you can keep a store going in Tazewell, you can keep a store going in anywhere in the United States, because everybody, especially then, now it's a lot better, but especially then, everybody's mindset was you had to go to Knoxville to buy anything. And they felt like if you bought it in Tazewell, it was just second rate, wasn't as good as it was if you bought the exact same thing in Knoxville. So, at that time, there wasn't nobody doing that. Nobody was doing antiques to amount to nothing. There was one little old place out at across from City Hall out on the old road. There was one little old place, Kat Fanning's girl. She done some stuff that was real similar to that. And so I always wanted to be over here in the old Judy's Florist building. I went in there when I'd made up my mind that I wanted to try me a store. Because if God give me any talent at all, it's the gift of gab, and I can talk you into buying something that you'll never use. But while I've got you there, on the spur of the moment, I can talk you into saying that you really love to have that, and then when you get home, you're like, I don't know what I bought that for. Impulse. That's the best way to sell anything, is you have to do it right then on impulse. And I went in over there to that old building over to old Judy. There was an old couple in there that had a thrift store. It had 780,000 used clothes racks sitting everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere. And I just struck up a conversation with them, and I said, yeah, how long you been? They said, well, we're getting old. We're thinking about retiring. And then it triggered, because that's where I wanted to be. Because I drove up and down the road, and the best, I feel like our location, our parking ain't the best, but our location is the very best location in Claiborne County. Because don't matter if you go to McDonald's or Walmart, you're coming right by me. And so I asked that lady, I was like, well, when are you thinking? She said, I don't know what we're going to do with all this stuff. And I was like, well, I'm kind of wanting to get into the business. And she said, well, let you talk. She gave me the number to Vera Poor that owned these buildings at that time. And so I called Vera, and I said, hey, I don't remember their names now. They're looking at maybe retiring and getting out of the business. Would you rent me that building? It's $600 a month. And she said, yeah. Well, I wanted everything done right then. So I went back over there and talked to them, and I was like, hey, when you thinking it's going to get out, she's going to rent me the building. And them people were smart. They seen how bad I was wanting in there. And they said, I don't know, it'll probably take us a few months to sell all this and have these sales, and get everything. And I said, I tell you what, I said, if you to be out by, this was like the 20th, I said, if you to be out the end of the month, I said, if you could be out by the end of the month, would you let me have it for the next month, starting the next month? And they said, well, yeah, but we ain't got no way. We're old. We can't move this stuff. And I said, well, I can get some buddies to help get this stuff if you've got a place to put it. I said, yeah, we've got a barn. Well, here's another way they smart. They got a barn, but everything that was in that store they wanted in the loft of the barn. They didn't tell me that. And they also at that time rented U-Hauls over there. So we just kindly cabbaged a U-Haul truck, and me and Jason Parrish and Corbin Lester, and I don't remember, probably Brad Davis at that time. We had all joined up, and they all them boys throwed in and helped me move. Well, you ought to see us getting that junk in that loft. I mean, it was, and that place was full of fleas. They had dogs in there. Oh my gosh, while we was moving that out, my ankles and legs was eat up with fleas. And every time I'd scratch, I'd think, I hate my wife. That's what I think. I think I don't want to do. I thought textile was bad, but it ain't bad as fighting these fleas and carrying this junk up these steep steps to the loft of that barn. But without them boys' help, I couldn't have done it. So we got them out by the end of the month. And so the first of the month, and Vera wanted her money up front. So I'd come up to $600, which to me at that time was still a lot of money. And I decided they wasn't no way in the world that I was going to be able to do it exactly like I wanted to do it, because at that time we were just going to have just a few antiques, but really what I wanted to get into was the shirt printing, because that's where the money's at, and doing that more. So we was going to have one side of the building over there, it was going to be shirts and apparel that we sold, and the other side was just antiques that we'd buy at estate sales. And so finally got all, it took me about 2 weeks to get all the fleas killed out of there. And when Judy's had it, she had a refrigerated section up front, so I had to tear all that out, and we completely redone the whole building. We put barn wood inside and board and batted it, and because Shelley said, you know, because it looked kind of just draped and dark, and it's just dingy. It looked like a thrift store when you went in over there. It's kind of what it looked like. And she had a vision how she wanted it to look. So we took the whole first month just getting it ready to go. And then we started getting business. We had a big grand opening on Halloween. October 31st was our first day. And Maggie, Tim West's mom, Maggie, was our very first customer. Come in, and she bought I think it was a Tennessee shirt. She bought a shirt of some sort. We've got that picture hung up somewhere. And at that time, we didn't know nothing about auctions. That was a real secret business. The antique world was a super secret business. We would go to other antique shops, and we just talked to them like we was, and then trying to gain information. But now everybody that's in the antique business is smart. They ain't a dumb person in the antique business, I promise you. They would figure out real quick what I was trying to get them to give me information, where they was getting all their stuff at to sell. So then we found out about Daryl's down in Manorville. He had an auction every Saturday night. So we would go down there, and we were buying stuff down there. And then we got to noticing, after a few weeks, that he'd have a lot of the exact same stuff every week. Old cast iron stuff, that looked like old antique banks, those old mechanical banks. My goodness, we made a truck payment off of that, off the old mechanical banks. And so then I said, all of this has to be coming from somewhere. There's somewhere that you get on the internet, you type in reproduction antique. Of course, at that time, I was selling them as real antiques because I didn't know no better. I was just going by what I know. And I was learning on the fly, I guess you could say. So you'd get on the internet and type in reproduction antiques, and it didn't pull up nothing. I mean, they've got the internet in a way that you couldn't just find what everybody else was selling. And we even got, so we would would see people that, like one time we was going through Knoxville and we saw a truck that we knew had an antique store, and we followed that dude just to see where he was going. And I thought, wherever he's getting his stuff from, that's where we need to be getting our stuff from. Because like I said, there wasn't nobody to talk to, and then the people that did do this business, they wasn't going to tell you jack. I mean, you could have broke the Masonic pledge easier. Whatever they do to the Masons, you could have found that out easier than you could have found out where all the reproduction antiques was made at. So at that time, we was just going to estate sales. Well, we were already printing shirts, so I thought, man, we need to get in the vinyl cutting business. We need to do signs and stuff. So got on Craigslist. This was the first time that I guess I ever really learned to grow up in my life. We got on Craigslist, found a place up in West Virginia, just I don't know, it's a pretty good ways away, just right up above Beckley. Guy was going out of business, had his whole vinyl wrap and vinyl cutting operation for sale. Went up there, talked to the guy, seemed like a real trustworthy guy. He had 2 printers. I didn't even know how to turn them printers on. I'm talking about wide format, 60-inch printers. He had 2 of those, and he also done the sandblasting on like pet headstones or smaller headstones that you see at the cemetery, like the single ones. He done sandblasting on them. So I'm thinking, man, yeah, we're gonna get in the sandblasting business. He wanted $20,000 for everything that he had. I almost had my truck paid off. I mean, at that time to me, $20,000 was like $2 million, and I almost had my truck paid off. And I went to the credit union over in Morristown, and I asked them, I said, I need to refinance my truck. How much money can I get? And she said, well, it looks like we can loan you $20,000. And I told her, I said, well, it must be of the Lord, because that's what I need, $20,000. Well, let me tell you about that devil. That devil, he'll make things easy for you too if he can. And so I got my $20,000. Me and Jason Parrish and Alexis, we went up there, and they have dog races up there at the Mardi Gras Casino in West Virginia. We went to the dog races that night, was going to meet that man over at his store the next morning. I gave him a $20,000 bank check and load up all his stuff. I had to mark Sutton's trailer again. And we loaded up big old air compressors and vinyl and these 2 big, huge, wide format printers. And man, we're coming back home. We're taking pictures. We're tickled to death. We're fixing to do something in Tazewell ain't nobody else doing. Well, I get home and I plug everything up. And I didn't plug everything up till about a week later, because that trailer was full of stuff. And I started plugging everything up and realized there wasn't nothing happening. So then I thought, well, I called the guy, and he said, probably just needs a head cleaning. And so then I called a place. It was a Muto wide format printer. Those wide format printers at that time were very high. They were about $20,000 by themselves. And so I had these 2 big printers, and I found a place in Knoxville that would work on them for me. So I load these 2 big printers up, take them down there. Well, the next day the guy calls me. He said, man, these are junk. He said, it's going to cost you $10,000-$12,000 to get these back in line. And you talking about just your heart dropping, because I've never been really lied to or done wrong in my life. That was the first time, like I said, that I growed up. I just always took everybody at their word, and I just always figured if you sold me something, why, to the best of your knowledge, it works as good as what you said, So I'm freaking out, and I'm calling that guy. Well, he don't answer my call, and he don't never call me back. So we drive up there. I figure out where he lives, and I go to his house. And the good Lord wasn't in nothing that happened that day. And so then I come back and get a lawyer, Dirk Daniels, over in Granger County. He's dead now. Good a dude as you'll ever meet. Probably a little bit on the shady side, and that's the kind of lawyer you want. You want a lawyer that's a little bit on the shady side. And he says, yeah, he was running for judge that year. And I said, man, I said, I'll print all your shirts for you. I said, I can't afford you because he was really high. He said, if you'll print my shirts, he said, we'll sue. Well, Dirk found out, he talked to the law up there, and Dirk found out that guy had about 8 lawsuits against him anyway. Because that's kind of what he did, was he bought stuff and resold it. And made it look like, you know, that it was all good working stuff, and he found people that didn't know no better like me, and he'd sell it to them, and just really wasn't no repercussions. We just had to get in line. So right off the bat, hadn't been open maybe 2 weeks, we done took a $20,000 hit. I'm 20,000 in the minus, and I'm thinking, my goodness, what are we going to do? And so now I had a truck payment that I didn't have before, $454. I can still remember what it was like paying that every month. And I had a truck payment that I hadn't had because mine was, well, I guess I had it, but it wasn't that high the first time. And so here we are, we got all this junk that we can't use, and I mean, it's just as good as boat anchors. And we're $20,000 in debt. And we're trying to make a living in Claiborne County. Shelley was still working at the dentist office at that time. And me and my mamaw and my aunt, we the ones that run that over there day-to-day business. 6 days a week, we was there. Shelley would come out at dinner, and if somebody wanted something custom done, we would do that. Now, the only thing the guy sold me that did work was the vinyl cutter. So we got pretty good at cutting vinyl. At that time, you done a lot of one-off shirts for birthday parties and stuff, and you'd put that big old heavy vinyl on there, felt like a parachute on your shirt. And we done a lot of that, and we was charging $15 a shirt. And you know, I probably didn't have $1 in the whole thing, so that was a lot of good profit. So our goal then was to make $200 a day. If we made $200 a day, and then on Saturdays you'd make about $600. That would be enough money. We would have enough money to pay our bills. That was our thing every week. You know, we had to make around $1,500–1,600 a week just to break even with what our bills was. Because you got to remember, half of everything you sell in this business just goes back to the cost of the item. So then we would take whatever we had left over, whatever profit we had made, and we'd go to the auction down there in Maynardville, or we'd go to the auction over on the mountain, and over on Rome Mountain, there's a furniture auction over there every Thursday night. And it's a good furniture auction if you don't go to it, but it's a long drive, and that furniture's heavy. Everything they sell over there is heavy, so take plenty of buddies. And we would go over there, and whatever it was, if we made $300 extra that week, that was all we could spend at the auction. We'd go and buy $300 worth of stuff, and we done that for a couple of years, and we eventually had a pretty good full store. And the awning out front, we would fill that up every day. For the first hour that I'd open, I would start carrying stuff out, and we had furniture sitting everywhere, old antique chairs, old antique furniture. And furniture in the antique business is where you make your money. That's you buy a piece for $25 and at an auction or the estate sale because their granny died and they don't want it, so you give $25 for it, and you take it and fix it up and paint it, and you can get $200 out of it, and you ain't got a whole lot of nothing but your time invested in it. And I learned this. I would recommend this to anybody, is to know before you ever start a business, is to know up front that your time don't pay worth a dime. Your time is, just know this, that you're gonna, if I had to divide my time now, and the good Lord's blessed us to be able to do some things, and we've got the best customers now, but if I still divided my time into the business, I bet you I still wouldn't make $3 an hour. As far as what you do mentally and physically, you've got to know that up front. And I say this, don't ever start a business that you ain't willing to mortgage your house for. If you don't believe in it strong enough that you would put your house on the line for it, don't start it, because you'll never make it work. Because in Claiborne County, it's extremely hard to make a business work. So there's a lot of opportunities still out there, but you've got to be willing to miss birthday parties. You've got to be willing to work Christmas Eve. You've got to be willing to work through Thanksgiving. You've got to be willing to do what somebody else down the road's not doing. You've got to be willing to do that to make your business go in Clary County. And so then we got a pretty good inventory built up. And I don't like paying rent, because that's just really paying somebody else's salary. I hate paying rent. I just hate it. So I started talking to Vera. We'd been there 2 years. We'd been there just a little over 2 years. And the good Lord had blessed us great. And like I said, Facebook wasn't really out back then as strong. And so the advertising was when we put everything out on the porch. When people would drive by, there's 100,000 cars drives by here every day. And, well, I ain't 100,000, it's a lot. And so they would see that and they would stop in. And so then we got in with the Little League. Madeline Noe got us in, so we made all the Little League apparel. And so that paid good, because you charge a little bit better there. So then finally, now this has been a couple, 2 or 3 years, the churches starts calling me back. And I mean, it took them, they was out with me for a couple, 3 years. But then they started calling, and we started printing a lot of church shirts. And then we got into schools. And then we were doing all of, like SMS, all of HY stuff. We was doing a lot of school stuff. And we were making real good money, profiting off the shirt side. The antiques, you still make good money, but the antiques is a full-time job, because you're constantly online. You was looking at where you could go buy stuff cheap. You know what you had to buy it for, and you know what you could sell it for, so you had a number. So that was a lot of work, and a lot of traveling. We missed about 5 years of our kids' life that we can't get back. And you know, we've set them down and told them that. You know, we apologized to them because we missed out on a lot of stuff, because we was either going to an estate sale on the weekends, or we was just going to do a lot of different things that involved the business over here, and our family life really took about third place. It just really wasn't up there like it is now. And our boys, I mean, at 7, 8 years old at that time, our boys had to work just like grown men. They had to help unload furniture. They had to paint furniture. They had to sweep. They had to vacuum. I mean, they played a good role in it. We wouldn't be where we are without the slave labor of our kids, I'll tell you that. But luckily, there's our kids. They didn't have no choice but to work. If they wanted to eat, they know they had to work. And all of our boys is working good now. I wouldn't say Colton's the hardest worker, but I had him when I was 30 years old, and they don't have no kids after 30, because you just spoil them. My boys say all the time, why didn't you ever talk to us like that, or why didn't you do this? If we'd have done that, you'd have done this. Well, yeah, I probably would have. But our boys that's all they've known is just work. You know, it's the only way you're going to get by. It's the only way you're going to get ahead. I tell everybody this: that you can make a living, or you can buy a boat. If you want to just make a living, just do just enough. If you want to be able to buy a boat one day, then you've got to be willing to go all in. And so you just got to figure out what you want to do in life. If you want to just make a living, lots of jobs, lots of businesses you can do out there if you want to make a living. But if you want to buy a boat, then you're going to have to work through Thanksgiving and work on Christmas Eve. So you just got to ask yourself, do you want a boat or not? And I've owned 3 boats, and that's the best day of your life. The day you buy one, day you sell it. That's the truth. And so now we've got a little bit ahead. We probably had, maybe to us we was ahead, we probably had $3,500 in the bank. And to us that was like $15,000 in the bank. So Vera decided that she would take $300,000 for this building and that building and the acreage that's around it. And so I went to the bank, and I was like, there ain't no way I can make that payment, because the time you pay interest on $300,000, you got nearly $600,000 in it. And so I told her, I said that luckily this building had been unrented since Fastenal was in here, so she wasn't getting any income off this building. and she was getting older, and she liked us, and so I called her and I said, Vera, I said, the county only had this appraised at that time. Now listen to this story. The county only had this appraised at like $125,000 for the everything. I said, Vera, I said, it's only appraised at $125,000. I mean, where do you come up with it? She said, that's what I gotta have. And I said, well, so I done the math. If I give $125,000 through the bank, then I'd have $300,000 in it. I said, Vera, I said, I'll give you $300,000 if you'll carry the loan at 0% interest. And she said, I'll do that. So every first day of the month, Vera Poor was sitting here ready for her $1,250. $1,250 is, ain't that what we pay, Cindy? $1,250. $1,250 on the first day of the month for 20 years makes $300,000. And so that's how we were able to buy this. See, I tell you stuff probably nobody else will tell you. To be like, we probably should. I just tell you, my life ain't no secret. What we do ain't no secret. If you want to do what we do, do it. Because here's the thing, and always remember this, if you watch this, you won't, the only customer that's going to come through that door and spend money at your store is the one that the good Lord puts it on their mind to do that. People drive by here every day and don't think a thing about coming in here, but then somebody drives by and the Lord says, look over there. And then they say, I wonder what they got in there. And then they come in. So it don't bother me. Used to, now I was real competitive because everybody seen that we started doing good. Now I'm just going to tell it like it is. Everybody seen we started doing good, and they was little old stores popping up. My goodness, every other week somebody was opening up a store. And I got pretty competitive with it because whatever they sold was something I couldn't sell. And you got to remember, I'm deep in debt, and I'm just paycheck to paycheck, week to week, depending on, you don't want it to snow and you don't want it to rain. Just depending on what's going on. And so, I mean, I was probably a little bit too competitive. How they said, I kind of had the Mike Reese mindset. You know how when somebody would want to open up a monument store, and where Mike ordered so much granite, he'd just go to the granite people and say, hey, if you sell to them, I ain't going to buy no more. Well, that was kind of my business motto. We were buying a lot of inventory at that time, and we were going to a lot of auctions. And if I started seeing, and the auctioneers loved to see us, because at that time I was buying a couple $1,000s a week at an auction. And so the auctioneers loved to see us because they were building up business, because they know that I'd pay pretty good prices for it. Stuff that when I was able to, by this time, stuff that should have brought $10, I'd start the bid out at $50, and so that helped the auction company as well. So when I would see people in Tazewell or around that was starting up a business and they'd show up to them auctions, I'd just tell that auctioneer, I'd say, brother, I won't be back. I said, you can sell to them, or and the auctioneers go to them and say, I appreciate you coming. And that, to me, that was just the mindset that I had, because I didn't want nobody else. I didn't being able to sell something. Just like I said, whatever they sold was something I couldn't sell. And then, I guess that was the second time that I growed up. I just figured out that one day I was just studying on it, and I thought, you know what? The Bible said this, one of my favorite verses. It said you can get up early and you can stay up late to watch over your house. And it said, but except the Lord keep the city, you do all that in vain. In other words, you can put burglar alarms, lock every door, do everything you can possibly do, and a burglar can still break in, even with you sitting there. But if the good Lord watches over that house, you can leave your doors unlocked and they won't nobody come in. And that hit me one day, and I just completely changed how I done everything. I'd try to help people that were starting out in business, and I would try to, I wouldn't necessarily tell them exactly where to go. We found out the place in Georgia where everybody went, and we just luckily stumbled across that. Some antique store up in Pigeon Forge let that slip, and I thought, what in the world? So And we would do that. We would go in the different places and look. At that time, we didn't do all this home decor. We just done the reproduction antiques more than anything, because it was so nice to be able to go to a 50,000 square foot building with a shopping cart and just walk around, put stuff in the buggy, instead of sitting at an auction all day long just doing this from daylight to dark. You know, missing every Saturday you was at an auction. I necessarily didn't tell them where to go get that at, but we started to see the changing. When we moved over here, you know, I was like, how are we going to be able to fill up this big old building? Remember, what's underneath is the same size as what's up here. We got a full basement underneath that actually has more inventory in it than what's up here. And I thought, how in the world are we going to fill up this big old building and still make the payment? We didn't have no money saved up for that. So that's when it hit me. I started looking at these antique stores. They had booths set up. So we went through building pallet booths around here. And it hit me, I thought, well shoot, I can rent out enough spaces at $1 a square foot. That's how I figured up how much the space booth was. At $1 a square foot, I could rent out enough spaces in here to pay my rent, and then all I have to be able to do is, and the spaces, we knew how much we was going to rent out, we knew what our bill was going to be, and electric bill and stuff like that's pretty high, and we built enough spaces to where they would pay our bills, and basically all we had to do was sell. As long as we could just focus on selling, it would all work. You need to pause it. Go ahead, pause it. Just flash it back. Gotcha. So, when we come over here, Shelley quit the dentist office, and that was our only steady income we had. So we just moved over here in total faith. And we started to see that the antique business was just getting slower and slower and slower. And it was getting harder to find good antiques. So then we started to go more in this home decor area. And the home decor is a lot nicer. It's expensive. I mean, in this building, there's well over $100,000 worth of inventory sitting here that's come out of my back pocket. And it's very expensive. So what we started doing was we started going more where we could just order without having to travel, freeing up our time. And then as the vendors started moving out, we just started taking over and over. We still got one with us, Candle Lady. She's been with us when we started, and everybody's wanted us to sell these kind of candles, that kind of candles. And I've told everybody, as long as she's in here, we'll never sell a candle. We leave it all to her. I wouldn't dare go in competition with her. She was with me when I started. We charged her $50 a month, and that's pretty cheap for what people charge. But she took the leap of faith when we started, and I wouldn't hurt her for the world. And she makes real good. She does good. I think she makes more some month than I do. So then we got into this side of it. So then we started just. My main goal was a 45-year-old woman is our main customer. So my main goal was to think of everything that a 45-year-old woman buys. A 45-year-old woman buys is what you'll find in this store. It's everything from home to jewelry to. So then we started branching out in different things. I started talking to people, and they'd come in. I'd say, well, what else did you do? You know, people that I knew was our main clientele. And then we were able to save up enough money to start sponsoring things or start helping people, and start being able to raise money for people. And that's how our business really started booming. It was when we started helping other people that couldn't help themselves. And a lot of you know about it, and some of you never know about it. A lot of stuff that we do just depending on the situation. And once you start helping people, you won't find true joy in your life. Just start being good to somebody that can't pay you back, that can't really, help themselves, help that person more than you'd help somebody else. So that's kind of how our business blooms. So now we do everything from painting to woodworking to signs to shirt printing to my brother still has the press. He's printing on it today down in Union County. He's still got the press that we started with, and we've got our own other stuff up here now. And the basement has more stuff in it than what you see upstairs, if you can believe it. The basement is so full of antiques, it's unbelievable. It's also full of a t-shirt factory. If anybody wants to buy some sewing machines, I've got all my dad's sewing machines down there too. And that building over there is completely packed full of storage. So we got a lot of stuff. And our main goal still in this county is, as long as we depend on the Lord to send people in here, and as long as we help everybody, you can't help a lot of people. Like last year was the worst year we've ever had in business. We done less profit money last year than we've ever done. I'm talking about from when I started over there as far as actual profit. Last year was the worst business the year before. COVID was the best business. I'd take COVID again in a heartbeat with that. I never made so much money in my life. I couldn't figure out stuff to buy fast enough. We bought tractors, we bought everything through COVID. And but with every good thing is bad. So then last year hit, and we wasn't able to sponsor and help as much, and we hated to tell people no, but we had to learn how to tell people no. And this year's been fabulous. We've started out this year, but don't ever limit your income to one resource or two resources. I've always told my boys, I said, you need to be like octopus. I said, he's got 8 arms hanging out there somewhere. I said, if he can't catch nothing with this arm, maybe one of them other 7 will do something. So we've got things that we're into now that nobody don't even know about. I mean, we own parts of stuff that nobody knows about, and we've got everything else going. So when something ain't doing good, something else is. So don't ever limit your income to one resource. If all you do is work at England's and you're totally dependent on England, then you've got a lot of worry on your mind. But if you're doing something on the side, figuring you out a little something to do on the side, then when England's is slow that week or something slow that week, and that's the same mindset you got to have. Just be like octopus. Have lots of different arms out there bringing money in, and that's kind of what got us. Cindy come on board. She's been a godsend. She's good for all of this flower and floral stuff, putting stuff together. And I'm actually now doing excavation more than anything. I'm kind of phasing out. I told Shelly Monday night, I said, I probably won't be at that store much anymore. I said, because this is turning between it and farming. We're farming close to 900 acres with what we got in Virginia and what we got here and what we got everything else, and putting up hay on, all the acreage together. And excavation, like yesterday I had 4 calls. I went and looked at 4 different jobs and got 3 of them, I know. And I'm already booked up this whole month, and we just been doing it a month. I've always had the equipment, but we just been using equipment on the farm, and Shelly said we had way too many payments to just piddle. She said I had to go to work. So I've been having to go to work. So this her and Cindy's store now, pretty much, I just come in and advertise a little bit. But I appreciate these girls. I know that I was long-winded, and I've run you through my whole life story. But there might be some 16, 17-year-old watch this that's got big dreams and big hopes, and you can see how that you can come from just a little old chair without your family, looking in a house, to pulling yourself up and saying, I can beat this, I can do better than this, and going from sitting in a chair to being able to buy an excavator, to being able to give your kids some property, to buy some little farms. We don't have no 401k, we just buy farms. I don't know how to do 401ks or nothing, I just buy land, and that's just what we put our money in. But you can go from sitting in a chair to doing that if you'll do this. If you don't worry about rising up early and staying up late, just let the Lord keep the city. You depend on Him more than you depend on your own ability, and watch see He don't start blessing you. And he makes checks a lot. He adds zeros to checks when the devil tries to take zeros away. The good Lord adds zeros to them. So I appreciate you, and if I can ever help any of you, just call holler at me, we'll sit down, come up to the house, we'll sit on the porch, and I'll tell you how I done it, and I'll tell you how I got through, and I can tell you everything to do wrong. And so maybe you can keep from not doing it. I can tell you how to lose money real fast, and I can tell you how to make money. Making money, there's nothing hard about making money. You just have to figure out how to do something better than somebody else is, or to find something nobody else ain't doing. And then when 13 other people, we had more antique stores than we did pizza shops. And there's 54 pizza shops in Cleveland County and haircutting places. Everybody cuts hair and makes pizza. But, you know, just stay with it, do a lot of praying, and work hard, and them places will die back out, and you still be standing. So I appreciate you and I love you, and if I can help you, holler at me.
Thank you.
Yeah.